Hi YouTube, this is Darkon633 and today we're taking a look at another Titan Returns Deluxe class review. This time we're going to take a look at Scourge from the first wave of the Titan Returns Deluxes. Now Scourge is actually a really nice figure. It does have one major flaw, and that's how the socket where the head on the Titan Master attaches to, unfortunately, is rather loose. And that's because, for what I can tell, since a lot of the other Titan Returns figures have the joint actually built inside the actual chest cavity, it's not the same for Scourge, because for some reason what Hasbro decided to do is actually make it stick out, and I don't know what causes that to be the problem with the design. But anyways, we'll take a look at the box. The box is of the normal blister card we've been seeing with the Titan Returns figures. Here's a picture of Scourge's head, or Titan Master named Fracas, which is supposed to represent his Target Master Fracas, so it's unfortunate that they once again changed these into Headmasters, but I guess it's cool to at least have at least one representation of Fracas, even if it's not the weapon. Anyways, here's a picture of his vehicle mode and shows that it is Fracas and Scourge. On the back it shows a bio and states that he transforms in 14 steps. So that's pretty much what you get there. The only accessory he has is two guns, obviously the Titan Master and his character card, which is really nice. I really like the artworks that they've done for this line. And here's the stats, which are pretty basic. It's definitely not the strongest, but not the worst either. So we'll now go on to the figure itself. The figure is very G1. And what I mean by that is that the whole design of the toy, especially when you look at the design of the chest and the legs, it's a lot more towards the G1 toy rather than the obvious representation of the movie and character from the show. And that's because the one in the show did not have all these extra things there. So it was a little bit different than the one in the show. Anyways, articulation-wise, the head obviously has the normal type of articulation with the Titan Returns figures we've seen. It has a high range of movement in swiveling around. It can also look up a bit. And as you can see, it is a little problem with the bobblehead, but not the worst since I did apply some nail polish. And it can kind of look left and right, but not by a whole lot, and that's just due to the ball joint on the Titan Master itself. Other points of articulation include ball joints at the shoulders, which can only go about that far due to the back piece, but if you want to, you can move it out of the way so that you can play with it a little better. He does have swivels at the elbows, which for some reason it did pop up. It doesn't actually do that usually, so that's weird that it actually did that right now. And then he's got a single joint at the elbow, which can go just about 90 degrees, maybe a little more. And it can also swivel a bit due to the way that the arms transform. He has no points of articulation in the waist, but he's got pin joints at the hips, which are rather tight. So it's not a ratchet per se. It does have a slight click, but it's very quiet, and the joint itself isn't the strongest, but it is enough to keep it in place. You're not going to have any wobble problems. But it does work really nicely. It does have swivels at the thighs, a little less than 90-degree knee joints, and his feet can pivot due to transformation, and his back heels can pivot just a bit once again due to transformation. Before we go look at the Titan Master, we'll have a little comparison with the other two Decepticons from the Transformers movie. We have obviously the Decepticon leader Galvatron, and here it is next to Combiner Word Cyclonus, which is the main reason why I got the figure, in order to have it in scale with the three here. Since Cyclonus is a Voyager, here it is together. And I think that looks really nice, and I think it's rather well scaled since Cyclonus was actually quite tall in the original G1 cartoon. Anyways, we're going to take a little comparison as well with the older release of Scourge, just to have a little comparison. Here he is next to the old Generations release of Scourge, and obviously this one was a little bit more hyper-detailed. It's definitely a different design, and he is quite shorter compared to this release, which is actually quite interesting that the scales have gone up in the last couple of years, so I give Hasbro some credit there. Just as a quick bonus, we're going to do one more small comparison with the two scales of the releases for the 3 Decepticons from the Transformers movie. So here's the really annoying Universe class Galvatron. And here he is next to Universe Cyclonus, which I really wish they released more Target Masters this way. It's unfortunate it didn't turn out well like that. We'll just do a side-by-side comparison with the new versions. Be nice to get it in frame. Obviously, we're going to put in Galvatron. So we're going to move figures just a bit to have more space to put in Voyager Galvatron. So here are they fighting against their older versions. So it's definitely changed quite a bit since their previous releases. So that's pretty cool. We actually have technically 2 full sets of the Decepticons that first debuted in the Transformers movie in 2 different scales. So anyways, that's it for Scourge in terms of scaling. And now we're going to look at his Titan Master, Fracas. So we're going to disconnect it from the head. Here's a close-up of the actual Titan Master itself. And here is Fracas in his robot mode. So I guess it's cool that we still have at least one representation of the character. He does have the same points of articulation as all the other Titan Master, ball joints at the shoulders, double joint technically together with the legs, but that's about it. And now we'll move on to the transformation. But before we go into the transformation, we're going to quickly take a look at how the Titan Master works inside the gun. So we just peg it in, and he sits in there. And once again, we got the no head syndrome again. But I guess you can kind of make a Fracas this way, even though it's not quite the way it should be. I never actually tried this before, so we're actually just going to quickly attach the head, and let's see if the gun that is included with the Universe version of Scourge can fit in his hand. Since this one is technically more close to how the design of Fracas was supposed to be, but they did not make it a Fracas in the first place. So I guess if you wanted to, you could probably, yep, it fits really well actually. So now you got a gun that's a little bit more towards the design of Fracas, even though obviously this one can transform. So that's really cool. So we're just going to quickly take out the gun and move on to Scourge's transformation. The transformation of Scourge is very G1 actually. It's got a lot of the G1 design aspects in the way that it transforms, but obviously it's got a new twist on things. And now we'll move on to the transformation. First, once again, we're going to detach Fracas from the body here. We're just going to take him off to the side. And now what we're going to do next is take the secondary gun out of his hand and put away the hands. Seems like a lot of Transformers just have that way of storing the fists. We're going to push these up, and inside the shoulder joints are pegs that we're going to peg into the elbows there. Let's get that in place. As you can see, there we go. Now we're going to collapse the heels, turn these around, open up these panels, lay them flat, and we're actually going to do something very strange here. We're going to pull this waist piece, and now we can collapse the legs inside the cavity there. Make sure that these face this direction, since this will become the top part of his vehicle mode. And then, to finish out the transformation, we're just going to peg these back panels into 2 different areas. One, there is a peg that's going to peg into the area here, and another one that's going to peg into the shoulder up there. So now we're going to get them together, and it actually pegs in pretty firmly. It's a little tricky to get into place, but it's not the worst. And there we have Scourge in his vehicle mode. So, it's very reminiscent of his G1 counterpart. On the top, there really is not that much kibble when you just look at the grand scheme of things, and that's really nice. It's the bottom where it suffers from most kibble, but it's pretty good for what it needs to do. You can open up the cockpit, which thankfully is of a harder plastic, not like the main Decepticon headmasters from what I could tell, that have a lot of gummy parts. And you can actually place in Fracas into the little cockpit area here, but it's a little tricky to get into. You do need to push it in just a bit due to having a little bit of problem with clearance here. So, but once you do, it should peg into place inside the cockpit itself. Once you get that done, there we go. We can close up the canopy, and now we have Fracas in the vehicle mode. You can store the guns pretty much at two locations here. One here, and one here, which has a lot of the reminiscent of the G1 Scourge design in the way that the cone piece actually attached. Now obviously in this mode, it does technically have a fake one, due to the fact that the cone piece appears on the Titan Master itself, and on the G1 toy, this was actually a piece that attached here, and when you move the piece, that's how his head was formed. So it's got a little bit of a cheat in the way that it transforms, but it does need to do it pretty well. But anyways, it doesn't have any wheels or anything, so that's pretty much it, what you're going to get for the vehicle mode. Now this Scourge is actually a lot better than I expected, especially when getting it in hand, though obviously maybe for a lot of fans it may not be the figure to replace the previously released Generations version of Scourge, but obviously this one is a lot more close to the actual G1 design, and I think that looks really nice in display with the other Transformers. Now it's gonna be weird if you actually get 3 of these because of the whole idea with the sweeps, because now they're gonna have 3 Scourges that are able to have 3 Fracases. So it's gonna look kind of weird on the shelf when you look at it that aspect, but just in display I think it works really nice for what it needs to do. I guess what you can do is, if you wanted to have Scourge in the sweeps, you could probably just get another version of the Generation Scourge, and now you can technically have 2 of the Generation Scourge and maybe 1 of the Titan Masters. So I still recommend this to fans of the original G1 cartoon, or fans of obviously the movie and so on, so it's still a really nice Scourge release. And because it's a lot more accurate to the G1 design, I think it looks a lot better, just in my opinion, on display. Now, obviously, because of the 2 different scale of the 3 Decepticon leaders in the Transformers movie are been released by Hasbro. If you already have the first 3 releases, I guess it's something you don't need. Obviously, the Galvatron is something that is way better with the Voyager, so it's not even close to comparison to what we've seen with the Universe Deluxe class figure, but I guess I could recommend this to those who are fans of the character as well. Anyways, please comment, subscribe, and check out Hero Taku and Hero Club. Also, please check out your Twitter at Darkon633. I'll be back for more Transformers reviews in the future, but for now, I'll be seeing you. Bye.